So, girls, welcome.
So this is going to be really fun. It can be such a pressure to date. It's like a crazy story, but like, for me, this is like...
I was going to church because my parents were
No, maybe. Hey, we are back for another exciting episode of Girl Talk. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited because today we are talking about one of my favorite topics, which is lessons learned in relationships. Ooh. So it strikes some emotions. Yeah, we can think back to relationships we've had. I think we've all been in relationships before, so we've all got experience to draw from. Yes. I think one of the questions I was thinking about, someone who was asking me was, what would you give advice for someone getting to their first relationship right at the beginning? What would be the one piece of advice you'd want to give them?
I can start.
Yeah?
I think my first relationship, the guy that I dated was an awesome guy. I can't speak more highly of him. Like really amazing person.
How old are you?
I was 18 towards the end of 18.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, like I wasn't in a place where I particularly wanted a relationship.
Right.
But then I'd written, as I think a lot of us do, not a physical list, but kind of in your mind, a bit of a list of things where I was like, oh yeah, if he's this, if he's this, then that's my type. And basically met this guy who was awesome. He was older than me though. He was like 5 years older than me, 4.5 years older than me. But ticked pretty much everything. And he really liked me, and we got on really well. We were really good friends, but I'd only known him for a few months, so it wasn't long beforehand as well that I'd been getting to know him. And he was just super excited about the relationship, and so then was like, can we date? And I literally was just like, okay, yeah, because I hadn't dated anyone up until this point. And I was like, well, you have to do it at some point, so I'm sure like my feelings will develop as I'm dating him. And then got like 3 months into it and nothing particularly on my side had changed. And I literally thought that I thought I was just like super like not emotional, not romantic, like would just never be that way in a relationship. And then I also thought I had commitment issues. But really, 4 or 5 months down the line, it lasted 5 months, I realized that actually I just didn't like him enough. A friend of mine told me that and was like, I think you just don't like the guy enough. And I was like, oh my word.
So your lesson would be make sure you like them.
A lesson honestly would be make sure that you're not just going into it because there's a pressure to be in a relationship young or to like get the ball rolling. But actually, really weigh up whether you actually like them enough before you start dating them.
I agree.
I think for me, I mean, I've said this before. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. Really, like, I jumped into the relationship too quick. Too quickly. He was 3 years younger than me and had just gotten out of a serious relationship. And then we started talking and jumped into it so quick. And I'm just like, and you know, it was my first boyfriend. So I was just like, ooh, like it was all exciting. But it was, take your time, honestly, because I jumped into it too quickly, and then it was, you know, you go through your honeymoon stage, not Hollywood stage. I was famous then, guys. No, no, honeymoon stage, right? And then, you know, reality started to hit, and I was just realized, wow, I really jumped into this too quickly. You know, you know, I had my license. I was really like go, and he, you know, I was picking him up, driving us to our date, and I was just like, I really felt like the man in the relationship. So I was just like, oh, but yeah, don't jump into it so quickly.
Right.
Yeah. I think for me it's the same that Sian was saying. I rushed it so much on my first relationship because I was so young. And like my parents are saying, I think it's too early to start something serious. I was 16.
Which isn't that long. I mean, like that young for a lot of people.
But it's common now.
I was 15.
But I think for me, I really thought I was ready. I was like, no, I'm ready. My parents started to date very young. My grandparents, all my aunties, like all of my family, they start really young. So I thought that for me was going to be the same. So I just turned 16. I was so mad in love. Like I really thought he was going to be the love of my life, and I love that thing.
Because we know what love is at that age, you know.
But I was so sure. And then with time, I was seeing all of the signs that I wasn't mature enough. another thing was he was living in another town.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't really see each other very often. And then when we would see each other, everything would come like in a boom.
Yeah.
It would be like a lot of jealousy, and because we didn't really had that close relationship, like we would see each other every weekend, or that would be every 2 months or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just such a rush. I didn't really think through that.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to listen to my parents. That was one of my biggest regrets.
Because
exactly. Like, they don't know how I feel. Yeah. And actually, they knew. They knew it really well. And I think I would say, don't rush and listen to your parents.
Yeah. So I guess a common theme is not rushing into things.
Yeah.
No. I think we've all learned that in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about for you?
Rushing into it, I think mine was a normal pace. I know I was 15 years old. I was like, I'm going to marry this guy. But kind of, that was my first relationship. But I think going in, getting into more adult relationships, one of the biggest things I think would be to just to 100% be myself at the beginning of the relationship. Because there's such a pressure that you want to impress someone. Because if you like somebody, you want to be the person that you think they'll like. So you try and be that person. And then you date someone, and then 6 months down the line, they're like, you're not the person that I started dating. And then you have to keep this bravado up. So I think one of mine would definitely be to be yourself completely, because then someone's going to like you for you. And then you don't have to worry about these kind of things, you know?
That is a good point. Sorry, you made a good point about being yourself. Like, that was one of the things. I was not being the authentic self, because what I would do things because he liked it. So like video games. Heck, girls, I don't play video games. I was like, he's like, you play video games? Like, yeah, I'll play video games. And in my head, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just trying to impress this dude, like, and stuff. And he knew that. He was just like, later when we got comfortable with each other, he's like, do you even like playing video games? I'm like, no.
There's like, why did you do it? Like for a guy. Or and then you're like, why did I ever pretend? And now it's like, why did I used to do that?
And he said he could tell, but he was like, you were so cute. I didn't want to say anything. And I'm like, okay.
It's funny because I so agree with that. And then I also think there's the other side to it, which was more where I was at. So when I went into my second relationship, I'd been like such good friends. Like we were kind of best friends with my boyfriend for probably 3 years. And I think I was so comfortable with just being myself and kind of like lounging about, looking a bit of like a bit of a slob, like because I'm someone who's super like, I'm not bothered about like generally like I'm not bothered about wearing makeup. I honestly like didn't start doing anything until, you know, people are like moisturize and like even as simple as like use deodorant and perfume. Like at that stage, I don't think
I'm an like deodorant, to be honest.
Person you date.
Exactly. At that stage, honestly, I was kind of like, meh, yeah, if I feel like it, if not. And I think I had a bit of a wall in a sense of like where he would occasionally comment on those things and be like, oh, why don't you wear more makeup? And I would always turn it into a thing of like, oh, you don't think I'm good enough as I am, like, or you have a problem with like me not wearing makeup or me not wearing deodorant. And
that's fair.
Yeah, and I think I learned like actually that was me developing a maturity to be like, okay, there's a difference between changing who you are completely for someone and do not do that. Like don't do that. No. It's not worth it. But there's a difference between that and then actually just like leaning a bit more into the other person's preferences and doing things that you recognize, oh, they have like a massive value really for like, I don't know what it would be like, you not sitting, I don't know. My brain was like just went, bleh. But just like small things where even if it's just like, oh, they don't like going for coffee, and even if I love coffee, then maybe I'll just get coffee with my friends. I don't have to have them like coffee. Do you know what I mean?
So you said that you were friends with your boyfriend before at that time.
Yeah.
That's another question I was going to ask. Do you think it's better to be friends with a guy first? Or how do we feel about just going straight into dating and then into a relationships? Like, do you think there's a better way or a worse way to do it?
I don't think I could do the dating straight up.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm really not wired to be like a romantic, I guess, in general terms. I like hate the idea of a guy who I don't know coming with like flowers and taking me on a date where I have to dress up nice and make nice conversation. Like for me, there's just something in that, which is so different with different people. But for me, I'm just like, and so I think like in my experience, definitely I have such a value of being friends with the person that I date beforehand, because then I can be myself and be comfortable, and I like know what I'm getting myself into a little bit more.
I think I've learned, because like I dated this guy who we were like best friends. I think I talked about it yesterday. We were best friends, and then his father passed away, and then I was emotionally attached to him. So then we started dating, and then when we broke up, that ruined our friendship. So for me, it's like I wouldn't want to maybe be with someone that's really close to, and then if something happens, that friendship is ruined. But I would like to like know a guy, like been like kind of friends, get to know, because I'm the same with you. I'm not really a romantic guy, like hold the door open for me. Even though I should allow him to have his moment, but like with the flower and all that kind of stuff, and just getting to know a guy from the beginning, it gives me so much anxiety that it's just like I can't do this, but yeah.
So confession, I did online dating once.
Hey, come on, Beth.
I actually wouldn't recommend it. But it was this idea of, before I've been friends with a guy, and I've kind of done it that way. But this time in this relationship, obviously obviously you're on a dating website, so you go for the purpose of dating, and you meet for the first time, and it's like, obviously you're there for something to potential, and it is awkward. I mean, I think you meet and you go on dates, and it's like romantic, and you kind of get over the awkwardness. But I think the danger of it then is you kind of automatically get this romantic attachment, and you kind of get yourself in a fantasy about it, and you think, oh, like I can marry this person, I could do this, and you do not know the person. You only know the part they want you to see. So in that, I think one of the lessons I learned in that relationship was to hang out with the guy or girl, if you're a guy watching this, with other people first, and see how they interact with other people, and see how they are with their friends, with their family, with their co-workers, with their church, if they're in church, because then you get to see them and not just the diluted percent that they're showing you.
100%. I agree.
I never had this kind of experience, like online dating, because when I started to date Eduardo, my husband, I was 17. I was almost 18. And then when I talked to guys and things, was all or from school or from church, and then that was different for me. But I was always very curious, like how it would be. Cause
online dating.
That's the answer. Yeah, but actually, some people they met. Like I know some couples that they met on online dating,
and it's wonderful. And you see them and they've lasted.
Yeah,
it really works
that's
for some
amazing.
people. And it's really great.
No, I think it works for me personally. It's not for me, online dating. It's just no, thank you. I'd rather have met you, known you in person. But it's hard. But I'm not, against anybody that does it. But I think for me, my friend, she so badly wanted me to do online dating. She set up my page and everything. I'm like, girl, I'm not doing this. She's like, yes, you are. Look how many guys like. I'm like, nope, just don't want to. But
Right, so do you guys mind if I change gear?
Yeah, go for it.
Because something that I really wanted to talk about, or people have asked me questions about, is physical boundaries in a relationship. I guess we've all learned, we've all been in different experiences. Some are married, some are dating, some are single. So where would you say, what lessons have you learned in keeping physical boundaries or not keeping physical boundaries within a relationship?
It's good. Biggest one I would say is get really good at communicating. Two things. Get really good at communicating with one another, and then also find someone that you can be accountable to, and that you can actually, like, who will straight up just ask you and be like, hey, these are the boundaries that you told me you didn't want to cross. How are you doing with like not crossing those? And even who can give you advice on how to avoid putting yourself in positions where that's more likely to happen. I think I have learned also through that second one of like be accountable to someone that although it's really nice because you feel like there's less of a chance of like judgment or someone being like, oh my gosh, what? Like I think we generally want to go towards our friends and our peers. I asked my friend, like one of my best friends, to be my accountability partner, and she sucked at it. She literally never asked me anything. Like I would have to go to her and be like, hey, you haven't spoken about this for a while. Like, should we talk about, do you know what I mean? And I think from that, like I've now learned that actually there's so much value in going to someone actually a bit older. And I don't know if you know, if people know someone older. Like I go to my friend Sandy Babes, I call her.
Yeah,
She's in her
Sandy
50s, like has had kids, like, and I think the wisdom and the advice as well that I get from her in those areas is just so much richer and so much better. And she's not like judgy about anything at all, which is great. So if you can find someone a bit older, then definitely like go to them.
Yeah.
And do you think there's an age where, so if you're starting your first relationship, say you're as young as 15, 16, is there any age that's too young to start having an accountability partner? Or would you say find someone at any time?
Do it.
Do it.
Sure.
As soon as you
anytime,
leave the womb. No, I think go for it.
Yeah.
Any age.
I think also for girls around the world everywhere, like you are not obligated, to, go as far as maybe he wants you to or whatever. The communication is huge, and and I think if he cares and loves you, he will respect those things.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's for both ways as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's something that I massively learn in so many different ways in relationships is I learn it now looking back that actually my comfortableness is comfortableness a word? My comfortableness is not worth like compromising, like looking back actually, I really wish that I put this boundary in here or said this and wishing that I had someone tell me that when I was younger, because thinking I'm not trying to stereotype guys, but normally in my high school, it was guys were like a lot more into pressuring and things like that. And they were like, it's a way you show love, and everybody else's girlfriends are doing this, and like the persuasion, and then thinking maybe they won't want to be with me if I don't do the things that they want. And that's really hard. But it actually, I would say to somebody in that position, just be strong, and actually if he's not willing to stay with you through that, then he is 100% not the right person.
Yeah, 100%.
I always say that. I think if he's pressuring you to do things that you're not wanting to, but then he's not for you. Then you need to leave that relationship.
And actually he's doing you a favor, because him pressuring you early on and now means that you don't end up being with this guy for years and years, and then or even married to someone who actually is just quite overbearing, maybe controlling, wants his way. Ultimately they need to love and respect you, and the way they do that is by listening to your requests and knowing if you say no, then no.
And I guess another thing with that is I would say never depend on your self-control. Put yourself in a situation where you won't be in a dangerous situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Hang out with the door open in your mum's house in a public place, because I know for me, when it comes to willpower, you're probably going to fail. And another thing is not to there's such a thing, just this or just this. As soon as you've given into one boundary, I think it goes downhill from there.
And I think putting boundaries and being aware, so maybe for you to hang out at 10 p.m. doesn't work, so then don't hang out that late. Or if you do want to hang out at night, with a group of people, or never go. If has a basement or whatever, don't go there. Watch a film together. Don't go to the basement. Stay away from the basement. But those things. Just being aware, just to put boundaries.
Definitely.
And aware. And I think also on this is don't expect, because I think there are some women who obviously we're completely wired to want to take the lead in things, to set the boundaries, to be this is what I'm comfortable with. But there are others where actually communication is difficult, and there's a tendency I think to think, the guy has got it, whatever he says is fine because he's wanting to protect me, he loves me. And I would just say don't put all of that on the guy, because the reality is in the same way that in your mind you're probably thinking is this too far? I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. And you're trying to figure it out, but you're allowing him to lead. Actually, he's probably feeling the same way, and he needs you as well to be able to call the shots at times.
I don't know if you said this. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you when you start dating, to right away have that communication. He's just hey, this is I think is a good idea. As soon as you start into this relationship, you're listen. A and B and C, I think that's very important. So
this
where you stand.
And if you can't do that, then actually this isn't the right thing.
It's not going to work. 100%.
And for me, just to be straight up and blunt about it, for me, one of those things is, okay, I decide I'm not going to have sex until I'm married. Right. And so even before I agree to date someone, I've already kind of had that conversation with them, and they are already aware of if I'm going to date Naomi, I can't expect to have sex. Do you know what I mean? It's that's just not going to happen. That's a no-go zone. own.
It's good to have the boundary.
And I even had one friend of mine in school who he liked me for some of it, but he wasn't a Christian, like didn't have the same like values around like sex or whatever. But he said to me one time, he was like, yeah, Naomi, he's like, you know what it is about you? And I was like, what? And he was like, you'd make a great wife, but a horrible girlfriend. And the thing is, like, at the end of the day, like, we're good friends. But I'm like, you know what? I'm so glad that I was that clear about that. Because if I had have got into a relationship with that person or people like that, it's so easy, actually, that in their mind, it doesn't make any sense that you wouldn't have sex until you're married. So, like, if that is something that you've decided, put it out there.
That's hilarious.
Can I ask you, so when, obviously, like, at school, that was something that you knew, like, and people knew about that, were you teased for that? Did people, like, bully you for that?
Yeah, 100%.
So how did you cope with that?
I think I'm probably, as a person, I have pretty tough skin. Like I'm pretty set in like, okay, I know who I am. I've worked through this. So thankfully I had quite a lot of that. But 100% I was teased. Like 100% I was known as like the Christian virgin in the school. And guys, even like a bunch of the guys in my school put bets on who would like, if someone would be able to like date me first or like things like that. It was like they had a bet on like trying to get a guy to date me, which actually I never dated anyone in school. So, you know. Two bad boys. And I think it's just realizing that when they say things like that, like that's their immaturity.
Yeah.
And the reality is like, honestly, the same with the thing of like a boyfriend who's pushing you or pressurizing you into something is just don't bow to it. Just recognize that you like have so much more worth than that, that actually you know yourself, you know why you set the boundaries that you do, you know why you are the way you are and you make the choices that you make. And actually that shows so much strength and so much grit. And I have so many friends now who like, even in relation to things like drinking and drugs as well, where I just kind of set a line and my friends knew it and were like, oh, don't even bother asking Naomi, she won't try it. But friends of mine even now like see me 5 years from when I've graduated probably school, and they'll be like, oh, like hearing like, oh, you still haven't done that, and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, it's Peachy, like that's my last name, Peachy. And they're like, oh, well, it's Peachy. Like if anyone would still be sticking to this stuff, it would be Peachy. And actually, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think as well to like, I think what I've realized getting older is to like, I would say like to people in school where this is everything and like you're always living in the moment, you're thinking, what are people saying and what is my boyfriend saying and what am I saying and what is life? To look past it and to think actually like in the future, where do I want to be looking back? And I think to say as well, like actually the sex before marriage or physical, when you become older and you're an adult, nobody cares. Like each to their own, you know? It is at the end of the day when you're an adult and you're in the real world, it's only you that cares about it. So just keep that in mind throughout the whole time, through school, through if you go to university, everything is like keeping yourself happy. How do I want to look at myself? How do I want to be? How do I want my future husband or my future boyfriend to feel and things like that? I think keeping a bigger picture of things is such a big deal.
And I think like what you said, Naomi, like just you knew who you were, you know, and so all those kind of things, you didn't care if you got bullied stuff. These were your morals, your values that, you know, and I think that goes back to knowing who you are. I think once you know yourself and you know your values, like you're going to get made fun of, you know, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
And it can be hard because I think it's amazing that you knew who you were, but I feel like for me, that wasn't that easy. I went for so many crises, like, you know, I wasn't sure. And when my friends would talk to me, sometimes I wouldn't even like, I don't know, maybe lie or say something that wasn't really how I felt because I just didn't want to go through a bullying or something. So I wasn't that strong. But at the same time, when I look back, I'm like, I don't want to just keep my mind on that. I want to make it different now. So I went through those moments and I maybe made decisions or did things that wasn't exactly the best for me, wasn't the best for me. But when I look back, I'm like, okay, that happened. But that won't define who I am. I want to grow 100%. With that, grow again. I want to grow in that area and I want to make things different now. And that's what matters.
I think that is so key. I think we've all have a past. We all made decisions. I've made decisions where, you know, it wasn't great, but it helped me to be the person I am today. And that does not define who I am, you know, and so I don't want us like just, you know, we do, like I said, we all make mistakes, and but that should not define who you are.
And I think something that has been really important for me is when I feel like I have made a mistake or with a boundary, say I've pushed a boundary that I had set, I think there's a tendency to go, oh, I'm just going to keep this in myself. Like I'm just going to tell me and my boyfriend are going to know about it. No one else has to know about it because I feel like embarrassed or like I don't want people to like judge me for it or whatever. And again, it goes back to the accountability, but like even if it's not someone who's like your accountability partner, but just like a friend or like I'm really close with my family, like I'd tell my sister things, like, but just like get it out there, I'd say, like put it out in the light, because as soon as you're able to put it out in the light and talk to someone, any sense of like shame or wanting to hide it, like I think that just gets thrown out the window, and you can make like good decisions from that place.
True.
Can I ask you, because I know you come from a background where sex is something that you just don't talk about. And growing up, I think you mentioned before that it was something that was like a little scary. Like, so what advice would you give people to the cultures, of the cultures where it's not something you talk about and actually it is a little bit shamey and scary? Like, how would you, what advice would you give them?
I would say for parents, make your house a safe place for your kids. I think is the first thing, because I've been actually starting to research about it. One day I'll be a mom, and I don't want my kids to go through the same thing that I felt, because I try to talk. My parents are amazing. I love them, but in so many times I was like, okay, but what does that mean? Or period. I just want to, you know. Should it be so painful this way, you know? But I would say make a safe place for your kids. I think it's much more a shame for the parents. Like, I don't want to talk about this. It's not something you want to know about it. But actually, it's normal and it's important to talk to someone. I grew up and I didn't really have like much information. When I went to the doctor, I would ask questions. You know, sometimes I would ask my friends, but my friends were like my age. What did they know about it? They would be like, I'm in the same place that you. I have no idea. Or like maybe some of their parents were a bit more open about it. You know, and when you're young and has so many things that you don't know, you're curious. You want to know about that. So it's much better if you have a place that you can ask those questions. And it's so good. It's I think it brings freedom as well. And just because you talk about that doesn't mean that you're gonna start to make those things. Actually helps you to make decisions.
100%.
It will help you to understand. So I would say, as much as can be uncomfortable, it's really necessary.
Yeah, 100%. I would echo that. My family is, as I've mentioned before, I think they're really open. We talk to one another about pretty much anything. And actually probably the vast majority of the stuff that I know about sex is through conversations with my parents, which I know, particularly in British culture, people are like, what the heck? Excuse me. But I think it's so healthy. Like, and obviously it's not like you're going into details about everything, but it's just being able to go to them and be like, okay, like, how has it been for you? And you're hearing a whole spectrum of life as well, like within my parents' marriage, because you have when they were young, before they had kids, you have like when they had kids, you have now that they're older. And I think it just helps give you like a really realistic picture of what sex in relationships is supposed to look like, and to learn also from their mistakes or from their successes, which I've done through my parents. Like my parents have talked to me, I've been able to take what they did and go, okay, I want to do that, or I don't want to do that. And that has like, given me a frame for making the decisions that I have.
I think like, before I say this, I think everybody grows up differently. And I think some people are, their parents are not able to, share this, but find somebody that you do trust that is willing to share, these things. But I think for my mom, like growing up, she took us girls all individually away for the weekend to tell us. And it was not awkward because my mom is a nurse. And so she did it so professionally. There's a medical aspect of it. There's the spiritual aspect, everything. It was just like, and like, I mean, my little sister would ask questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, why would you ask her that? But it, it was so important. For me, I was just like, I wanted to actually hear like the medical aspect of it too. And I think that's so important. And
Wow, it's been really great learning about all the different experiences.
Definitely.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Thanks for learning about sex boundaries and relationships with us. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Again, another one that you could just go on for ages.
About.
So,
It's very.
It's really real. And when everyone's got such different cultures and upbringings.